I want to talk about how I was a product of ageism, age abuse, age.
Ageism is like discrimination.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was. I was
Okay.
ageismed. I was an ageistismed today.
Someone has ageismed you?
Some communities put full-blown ageism on me, and I don't appreciate it.
It's making you feel bad.
I'm super self-aware of my ageism now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was on my phone, and Apple News oftentimes just pushes stories it might think you're interested in. And it said, former gold medal Olympian Ryan Lochte refers to himself as ancient in the world of competitive swimming.
How old is Ryan?
He's 36. That's how old I am.
Ancient.
Ancient. Same day, talking to a friend about the Reno Rodeo. The Reno Rodeo started this weekend. Has all the normal trappings of the Reno Rodeo. You can go see men wrestle cows, and you can see little kids cling on to sheep, all that fun stuff.
And you can see girls barrel race.
That's true. After the Reno Rodeo has commenced, you can go to this thing called the Jack Tent, which is short for the Jack Daniels Tent. And it's a tent where lots of people, ironically or unironically, wear cowboy gear and dance the night away to country music that they won't listen to for the next year. I went on the Reno Rodeo's website to see if they referenced the Jack Tent, a place that I have been many times before, and they do. And they say it's a barrel of fun for everyone aged 21 to 35. So apparently I'm no longer capable of being a competitive swimmer or just having general fun at my age, according to Ryan Lochte and the Reno Rodeo. Shots fired at me. Personally.
So you are it's kind of like reverse ageism. If you go to the Jack Tent
Yes.
and you provide your driver's license, they're going to go, oh.
They're going to
buddy,
say
you're
like,
too
oh,
old."
have you not seen the website? Only
Yeah.
people 21 to 35 can
You've
have
aged
fun
out
here.
of the Jack Tent. Now go over with all the old folks in the VIP tent, have a set of ribs, have a beer, and go home.
Yeah,
because that's how it needs to be for you.
don't qualify for any of the drinks here, but we do have a barrel of Metamucil for you if that is going to help you. I was just felt so horribly attacked in those moments.
Yeah. Well, honey, you were never going to be a competitive swimmer.
Well, not now. I'm ancient.
Well,
I just
also-
kept that on the back burner for a little bit.
Don't you remember when you went through your Michael, what's his name, stage?
I don't know.
Of course you do.
I do, but I'm not going to tell you. He's the most decorated American Olympian ever.
Right. The guy, Michael.
Yeah. Michael
Oh.
Jackson.
Everybody knows who I'm
Yeah,
talking
exactly.
about. Right.
But fill them in because you obviously know. You're just playing with everybody. Tell them who's the most decorated Olympian ever. Michael. It's so close. Michael.
Oh, what is his name? It starts with an S?
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
Michael
Michael.
Shamshock.
He has a wingspan.
He does.
Of like 7 feet or something.
Michael Samuelson does have a wingspan of 7 something.
So, Michael.
Michael.
You're
Fill in the
me
gap.
today.
Michael.
Killing me.
Break me off a piece of that, Michael.
Kit Kat. What? What's his? I can't remember. Now I'm never going to remember his last name.
Well, it'll come to you.
Okay, it'll come to me. So that
Michael, fill in the blank.
Guy, okay, that guy.
Yeah.
When you were in college,
Yeah.
you said to me,
Yeah.
I have the same wingspan.
I do.
I can also be a great swimmer. And we've got a
I mean,
pool at my college.
if there is no other indicator that I can be an Olympic swimmer than wingspan, then there was no stopping me. Does it matter that I haven't been competitively swimming ever? No. Does it matter that I sink rather than float? No, not at all. But a guy who has trained his entire life, who is a freak, has the same wingspan as me. And I thought, gold medal, baby, here it comes.
And you bought the stuff.
Well, I mean, the stuff being goggles and swim trunks.
You bought Speedos.
I didn't buy Speedos. Are
you
you
didn't?
insane?
Did you buy but the tight trunks?
Right. I bought goggles and swim trunks.
Did you buy a thing for your hair?
No.
Oh, you never committed to that.
Because that was one of the things I was going to say. If I can swim as fast as him with this much hair, I mean, just print off gold medals for me.
Right.
Here's the thing. It didn't work.
Well, of course it didn't work because you sink.
Right. But I just wanted you to know that I was attacked. It was vicious. I'm still sitting with it. At 36, apparently I have to just give up on all things I've ever wanted to do because the world's not made for me anymore. Speaking of, on Thursday, we had questions, and one of the questions was, how long could you last in a forest with no tools? We decided, Deb thought she could do a week, and I thought I could just outpace her. No rhyme or reason to any of this.
10 days for Kev, a week for Deb.
Exactly. The next day, for the first time in 7 years, I mean, we literally 24 hours later, after we recorded the podcast, for the first time in 7 years, we lost power in our house. I had just microwaved dinner. I was going to go turn on the local news. As I go to turn on the local news, everything in the house turns off, and I think, did I push the wrong button? We don't have a universal remote control that turns everything off in the house, only to find out all of the power to 21,000 homes in our area died. So we'll say it's like 6:30, died, completely gone. It didn't help that it was 100 degrees outside on top of that. Here's how I know Deb and I really overshot how long we could survive in the forest with no tools. Less than an hour into it, I would say less than 30 minutes into it, we're looking at each other being like, what are we going to do?
Oh, no, like 10 minutes into it.
Who's going to die first? No matter that we have a freezer full of food, no matter that we have a fridge full of food, no matter that the house is still cool at this point, we're looking at each other like the Donner Party being like, well, the dogs die first. And then if dad's doesn't have a day of strength, he's next.
Yep.
We have no survival skills whatsoever. We were staring at our phones and our phones weren't even working.
Because the internet also went down, obviously. And I literally kept saying things like, I'm going to go make a juice. Oh, that requires electricity. I could like pulp it to death and go get a hammer.
I mean, you could take your Morton pistol and try to make juice that way.
You know, I mean, we were so stuck.
It wasn't even funny how I was staring at my phone that wasn't loading anything. I
know.
could not last 30 minutes without trying to find something as to why my technology wasn't working, and I'm turning to my technology to try to make it work. Finally, I got through to Twitter, and NV Energy was saying, hey, we're so sorry. There's 21,000 people affected. We don't have a timeline on when we're going to have it back up. Please bear with us. As if that was helpful to anybody.
And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, Kevin, of the brownouts.
I'm telling you, it's the middle of June. I immediately thought back to, how on earth could we survive when we can't even function in our own house? Here's what we ultimately did. We just left the house, got in the car, and drove 20 minutes south of town to the grocery store just so we could be in air conditioning in the car. It had been 30 minutes.
So we didn't know exactly the 21,000 people. We kind of thought that we had carved out the section. And then you were worried that everything was going to be like all the lights were going to be off.
Right. I mean, and that was the case intermittently, but not at any massive intersections.
Right. But then it was very clear when we got to the safe zone, right? Where everything
when we got out of the boundary.
We got out of the boundary. And so we went to the grocery store, and then we texted our friend Alyssa and said, hey, we're coming to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we did.
I ran through every worst case scenario in my head. What happens when the refrigeration starts to get warm? Yeah. What happens if we run out of hot water? What happens if I can't do any work? I started playing out the worst case scenarios. And because I'm not a true survivalist, I didn't come up with any answers. I just only came up with the dire potential consequences. I'm looking at the dogs. The dogs are panting, and I'm just like, well, they're going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a matter of time until they die. And I have parents who, I mean...
Oh, you're going to... Now elder abuse is going to start?
Well, no, I'm not going to elder abuse you. The heat is going to ageism you into death, apparently. And I just kept thinking, like, this is how all of us die because we don't have air conditioning or electricity on 100-degree day in the middle of June.
So the best part is Dad, at the realization that the power went out, Dad said, I'm going to bed, which is kind of what everybody should have done, except it was like 7 o'clock.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not even 7. But then we're at Alyssa's and I get a phone call from Daddy, and he sounded a little perturbed with us, like, the power's back on. You two weenies can come home now. Yeah. I mean, that's a little bit what it felt like. And so we did end up coming home. The power was back on, but the internet never came back.
And that was the other thing. The internet not coming back on didn't come back on for 14 hours. We didn't have any internet till the following morning. I should say this. I'm making it sound a little more catastrophic than it really was. I'm not sure if you can sense the hyperbole in my voice, because when it was all said and done, we were only without power for 2 hours.
Okay, Weenie Michael Phelps, let's move it on.
She got it. Let's start the podcast.
Welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. One is a Harvard Business School alum. The other is her son, discussing business, pop culture, family, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Deb and Kev.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. Sitting right there, they called Khaleesi the mother of dragons, and some call her the mother of fathers. It's my mom, Deb.
I'm Deb.
And similar to her being able to be a mom, my dad wouldn't be a father without me. I'm her son, Kev, and this is our podcast. Hey, Mom, happy Father's Day.
Hey, thank you, sweetie.
On today's show, in her business segment, Deb is going to teach all of us some useful tidbits on how to empower employees into making their own decisions. And we are back with 3 more questions for the segment we call Dear Debbie. And we will wind it down with what we are thankful for and what we're whipping up for Father's Day feast. But first, I really don't have anything to go in this section. I was hoping that something was going to strike me, and it really didn't. It's Father's Day today.
Yeah.
It's 98 degrees.
Yep.
We are podcasting. Dad is golfing.
Yep.
My one question would be, I'm not a father, even though I'm the age of many fathers.
And apparently the world thinks you should be a father and not be in the Jack tent.
All true. At what point do parents have expectations that their children are going to carry the mantle for parent-specific holidays? I think I've asked you about that.
Yeah.
I think I asked you about that for Mother's Day, but I don't know that I did, so I want to ask it for Father's Day. So, for instance, you know that at ages 1, 2, 3, 4,
10,
5,
12.
6, 7, maybe up to 12, I really am not going to be the instigator of presents or cards or much effort as it relates to acknowledging Father's Day. But at what point would you turn to me and say, hey, dummy, it's not Husband's Day, it's Father's Day.
Right.
My expectation is that you're bringing something to the table. Clearly, I can help you execute it, but in no means am I the one who's going to be carrying this water for the rest of life.
I think it's gradual. So obviously when you're a little tiny boy, I just do it all, and then here, this is what you're giving, Daddy. I would have shown you the gift and then I would have wrapped it because you would have been too little, right?
Yep.
But I'm thinking, you were a child of many opinions. I'm thinking at the point that you had an opinion, I would have said something like, so that could have even been 6, 7, 8. Like, so have you thought about it's Father's Day? What would you like to get, Daddy? Because you would sometimes think of weird and strange things, and I'd go get the weird and strange
Give me a couple ideas of a weird and strange thing young Kevin might think an adult would like.
Like you would have said, because you would see Daddy go to work every day, you would have said, let's get Daddy a tie. And then I would have taken you to Daddy's closet and shown you 422 ties.
Very unoriginal. I just didn't know that.
You just didn't know that. Or you might have said, let's get Daddy a car. And I would say, we're not going to get Daddy a car.
Super original, just maybe not the expenses for it.
Right. Very generous.
A lot of room in there to make a better decision for me.
Let's take Daddy on a trip. And I'd say, where do you want to take Daddy?
Still playing in the extreme end of the pool.
Let's go to New York. Nope, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Right? Do you want to go take Daddy up to Lake Tahoe with a big picnic lunch, something like that?
Do you need to have a plane to travel up there?
No. So I think it's very gradual, where then I'm, like there was an age where I would have said, because you were a good golfer, very young, I would have said, Kevin, why isn't golf with Daddy today? And you did do that for a number of years. The two of you would go out golfing. And in fact, I think our golf course even had like Father's Day little tournaments or things. Yeah. And then I think it would have been up to you. And that's probably when we saw gifts disappear. And
oh, you mean at the point that you looked at me, you're like, this is now yours. This is yours to carry forward. You're like, the gifts just dwindled into cards.
The gifts dwindled into dollar store cards.
Fair.
Right? Remember the dollar store cards with him, people. And then you would latch onto my gifts. You somehow latched onto my gifts.
This is a gift from both of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'd be watching with just as much shock and amazement when the gift was open to see what it was.
Or you would hover around.
What does that mean?
Hover around as he's opening.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, how the people that give the gift watch, you would hover around like you were the giver of the gift.
Make myself just a little more present.
Make yourself a little more present. Yeah. But not actually be charged of the present itself.
So I know we've talked about like what your ideal Mother's Day gift would have been, which is just to not have family around, right? What are the general like expectations? I mean, it's a really bizarre holiday if you think about it, because the individuals have to make a being that then has to turn around and acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Right.
How strange is that?
It's super weird. It's like, I'm totally aware that every holiday is a construct of man. Like nothing's like embedded into humanity.
Well, and you have kind of a disdain for holidays.
I don't have a disdain for holidays. Yeah, but I think it's really funny because you can trace the origins of every holiday to like a massive company.
Right.
And the company turns out to be $1 billion conglomerate that's just trying to get more money from you. I imagine Hallmark is the cornerstone to Mother's Day and Father's Day being a thing, right?
Well, when we were just in Mexico, there was a thing, and I asked somebody about it, and they said that Mother's Day in Mexico is encroaching on Christmas.
In what way? Like time-wise?
No. I mean, in money spent.
Oh, there you go.
For mothers. I mean, like, and all the paraphernalia. Yeah. Whether it be taking them out to eat or making a special meal or decorations or whatever they do.
Meanwhile, poor Father's Day is just...
I don't think it's even a close second.
One step up from Groundhog's Day down in Mexico. But so the expectation, I mean, short of just acknowledgement and a card, which again, nobody ever has to get me a card ever under any circumstances. Like if I'm a dad and a kid gives me like a paper mache thing that they made or like a little hand turkey that they did in school, like obviously I don't want that, but it's cute that my kid did that.
Well, you don't say.
I'm not going to look at him and be like, hey, thanks so much for this.
You go put it on the
Zachariah.
Like every good parent.
And as soon as he walks away, he hears the garbage can open. Like
shred it.
But like, what are the expectations moving forward? I mean, it's just like most things. Do you just want it to be acknowledged, or do you actually care about anybody?
Oh, well, I mean, I think some people are. I think I've said this before. Like, I think there are some women that really want it to be a big deal, meaning Mother's Day still. I mean, I do think it's really hard because you're living in our house. I have access to you. I currently don't have the opportunity to miss you or miss spending time with you. But if you were on the other side of the country and I hadn't seen you for a while and it was Mother's Day, I think it would be sad for me if I were just alone.
Sure.
You mean like
just with Dad?
Just with Daddy. But you know what I'm saying. Dad
well, because the holiday is not meant for Dad. The holiday is meant for me to express my appreciation
and Dad
for you.
Would acknowledge Mother's Day always. He's very good about that. But that in that case, it would be sad. But I'm just saying, if we lived in the same community and had access to one another, you don't need to do a big hullabaloo for me. It's not necessary.
I guess it's just a question on after a certain time, as a mother or as a father, these holidays they're all on Sunday. Nobody's like getting a day off.
Right.
Nobody is throwing some massive celebration like a 4th of July or a Christmas or a New Year's Eve. Is it just that you want the acknowledgement?
I guess so.
And something that shows you remembered. So like a card or a little trinket or going out to dinner, just some mild amount of effort.
For me, it would be acknowledgement and a little bit of time together. If that included a meal, great. If not, don't really care. I will say, back to Mexico, Mother's Day is always May 10th, and it is a national holiday. So I kind of like that because it puts some real significance on it. Now, to all of our Mexican friends, if I got the date wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure it's May 10th. But they take the day off. It's a big deal. For me,
Father's Day, they make them work twice as hard for half as pay.
They do. Now, I do think, but I think there are some women that would be like, they still maybe want control of the event to some degree. I think there are women who, that have more than one child, want them all there. Do you mean want all the children and their children and all of that kind of thing there? But gosh, Kev, that's not my situation. And I don't yet, I'm not going to miss that brother or sister you don't have.
That's
right?
true.
So if you show up, I'm good. That really is all it takes. But I'm pretty don't you think I'm pretty relaxed about that stuff?
Well, I'm trying to focus on the Father's Day element, and you kind of keep bringing it back to Mother's Day,
I only have Mother's Day to reference. So here's what I think with Dad. I think that Dad is very much like me in that he's very relaxed about that holiday, and he would like some acknowledgement and maybe a decent meal, right? He said the other day, which was really, really sweet, he said, you and Kevin have cooked so much good food the last year and a half now almost. And he said, but aren't you sick of it all? And I went, yes, I'm sick of all the good food we've cooked. There's no question we've tried new food. We've put different spin on old food, if you will, old recipes. We have done it all. And I am sick of anything that comes out of our kitchen.
That's fair.
That's how I feel. But I said to him, I think it was yesterday, I said, so it's Father's Day. And Daddy and I do this little dance every year because Daddy acts like he doesn't want to golf that day. He really wants to golf that day.
Yeah, anybody who listens to this podcast understands that.
Right. But he always pretends that he doesn't care about golf. And right now, he is back to 18 holes. I think it probably almost annihilates him, but he's doing it, okay?
Yeah.
So I said to him, so you're going to golf Sunday, right? And he goes, oh, I don't know. That's what he does. And then he says, do you have something planned? The answer would always be no, not in the first part of the day.
Why?
Because you like to golf.
Exactly.
Right. And we already know it. So why are we playing this game? Right. And so I just said, I'm not going to be in charge of anything with you until after noonish or one-ish or, like later in the day, which was then giving him full permission to go do whatever he wants to do at the golf course.
Which was giving him full permission to go do the thing he's done every Father's Day for the last 30 plus years.
Exactly. So then I said, what do you want me to make? Because we don't like going out on those kind of holidays. The three of us.
The price markup is insane. There's way too many people. And it's just, it's never worth it. No, I don't remember going to a restaurant for a Mother's Day or a Father's Day and thinking, wow, this Mother's Day themed brunch sure was worth the 2 times bill we paid.
We've gone to really nice places. We've gone to really casual places. We've gone to places up at Lake Tahoe. Here's the problem is everything runs behind on those kind of holidays.
Totally.
I hate waiting for that kind of stuff, especially when you have a reservation. So anyways, I said, tell me what you might like. And he said, well, and I could tell he was going through the whole steak routine, but we've done that a lot lately. And so I said, what about ribs?
I thought about ribs.
And his face lit up. He was super excited. He said, yes, ribs. He was super excited. Then I just walked in the kitchen. It was kind of like, I'll build something around ribs. And then he said, I want you to make your baked beans. And I went, okay. And then I said, potato salad. He said, perfect. And we'll probably get corn on the cob because he loves corn on the cob. So I think that's going to be our nice little Father's Day meal.
Note to self, cross off what's for dinner at the end of the show. You already have your answer.
Yep.
It's over.
It's over.
Deb already spilled the beans.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Were you not tracking with what I was just saying?
I wasn't tracking what you was just saying.
I know.
Sorry.
No, trust me. I saw it on your face. I know.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Dad's going to golf. We won't pay him any attention until dinner.
No attention till dinner. Well, because here's what's going to happen. It's going to be a gazillion degrees.
Yep.
Dad's going to go golf.
Yep.
He's going to come home, and what's he going to do?
Hard nap.
Hard nap. Like, I mean, nighttime, dead asleep nap. Okay. Which is why we can get everything ready. And then when he wakes up, we'll have a nice meal and a card, and there'll probably be a gift for him.
That all makes sense.
Yeah.
That all checks out to me. All right, Deborah, let's talk business. Let's get down to brass tacks business.
So, what do you think about the topic today, Kev?
Well, Deb, allow me to reintroduce the topic to everybody. You are just very eager to get to everything today. It is empowering employees into making their own decisions. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people want exactly that. They want their employees to be free thinking, fluid, coming up with their own solutions to all the problems that life tends to throw at them in a professional setting. More often than not, the employee isn't equipped to do that or doesn't actually know how the problem should be solved in accordance with the owner or the manager's desires. So how does one go about empowering an individual to make all those decisions that fit within the brand standards of the business?
One of the things with employers, you cannot empower people to make decisions while you're micromanaging them. So if that is your thing, to either micromanage or overmanage, you're never going to empower them to go off and do their own thing. Because they're constantly, it's almost going to be parental. They're constantly going to be thinking like, what does John think? What does Susie think? I mean, it's going to be, which we want employees to think that to some degree, but we also hired them to think for themselves.
Deb, I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe a little off topic, but I think it'll circle back around. Why do people micromanage? What's like the number one impetus for somebody looking at somebody else and being like, hey, I want you to do what you want to do, but I'm going to be glued to your back the entire time? I
think there's two basic reasons. There's probably more than this, but I think one reason is that the employer has such a rabid need for control, that's what they do, that it really is their problem. Then I think the other reason is when we have an employee who maybe struggles in a given area, because we don't communicate effectively the issue of that area, specifically that area, that what we tend to do is we start micromanaging by default. Like we start to hover, we start to check, when really we just need to say, hey, look, so your product in this area isn't very good, right? I need it to be this. Do we need to retrain? What do we need to do? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I think that part is what we've talked about before about communication, confrontation, really saying the words to what it is, and that so that we're not trying to influence or control some peripheral issue. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So I think it falls into those two categories mostly. I think the thing on, like if somebody has micromanagement, I'm going to say
disorder,
then they should look into that and see why they have those kind of control issues, because often there is more than one route to any given problem, to solving a problem.
Of course.
And we need to let people take their routes. When I train people, I always say, I can only train you how I know. This is my process, right? What I really care about more than the training is the end product, where we get. Sometimes the process is super important, like baking a cake. It's chemistry. We need to follow it. More likely than not, we need to follow the instructions.
Yeah, within a threshold of like 1% to 2% of the actual ingredients.
Exactly. But in other parts of life that don't require chemical reactions, then really there are a number of routes. What I say is you've got to learn my route because that's the only way I can assess that you've got it initially. After that, you get to take whatever route you want, as long as you don't use up too much of my time, meaning I'm paying you extra, or too much of ancillary product or whatever we need, as long as it's not a productivity or money issue, right? Then if we get to the same result, I'm good. I don't care, right? So I think one of the things is that bosses need to model the behavior that they want to see. And I think that sometimes bosses, like they have this open door policy, they let people interrupt them constantly. People are in and out of their space. You know, they're always kind of booked and there's never an opportunity to get in there for a real conversation. So I'm going to say it's like, I think bosses should model what I'm going to call is like focus opportunities, meaning sometimes it's okay to close your door.
Got it.
Sometimes it's okay that, you know, when I have like this sticky note on my window, it means nobody come in here and bother me. If you see maybe like I have ear pods in, that's don't bother me. I'm working on a thing. So I think when bosses do that and exemplify that look, there are times that I need quiet, that I need space, and that I need to not be interrupted to get this thing done. They're actually teaching the employees a really good thing because the employee actually gets to do that as well, right?
Yeah.
And so especially if the employee has a job where there possibly could be a lot of interruptions, but also has project work as well, that they can model that same behavior. So I think that's part of it, is the focus piece of it. What do you think of that, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I have thought back on when yes, I have had employees, but I've never had like employees that were truly empowered to think critically about a situation. Like if I reference the restaurant, for instance, everybody kind of understood the framework of customer service as it related to a restaurant. And we hired relatively smart people. That wasn't always the case, but for the most part, we hired relatively smart people. And they could think through like a customer interaction. And if it got them out of their depth, there was always an owner around, you or I or dad was there to be able to help. The only thing I can genuinely think back on where it was just kind of crash course training was when I was working with Dinner Lab, and we would hire people more or less sight unseen and then work with them for 8 to 10 hours. And they were doing a job that, again, fit within the realm of customer service, but there were so many moving parts and it was just different enough that they truly couldn't grasp what it was. And they shouldn't have been able to because it was their first time doing something like this. So there was probably more micromanagement in that moment. But I think because it was such a one-off for so many of these people, they actually appreciated me not like looming over them like a shadow, but being able to say like, hey, we're specifically doing it like this. Let me walk with you to this table. Let me show you how to do it. And even though they had all delivered food before in some capacity, they'd never delivered food like this in this setting under these types of circumstances. So when I think on like empowering my employees in those moments, the best way I could empower them was by actually doing it for them in the moment and then hoping their learning curve was very quick to be able to go do it themselves and then have no emotion behind them coming up and asking me a ton of questions in the flow of service because they had literally never done it before and they had no actual expectations or understanding of how the night was going to progress.
But that's actually a great form of training. I mean, so what you did is you didn't do it for them all night. You did it for them for a moment to show how you wanted it done.
Right.
I mean, so that's a training component, which honestly, that's how so many people learn. It's just like, show me,
totally.
and then let me try it. Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's perfectly, and especially you had such serious time constraints. They were going to be with you 8 or 10 hours, period, done, and you were lucky if they showed up another event, another time.
Yeah, I was just lucky if they showed up. Yeah,
there was that. I remember you saying, how many would you hire to try to get how many to show up?
I would put out job postings on like 3 different websites. I would usually get, anywhere between 15 to 25 responses. I would interview all of them. I didn't even care what their experience level was. It didn't make any difference to me. If they could walk and maybe chew gum at the same time, I would be willing to have a conversation with them. I would probably, through those conversations, hire, quote unquote, hire half of them. And of that half, so now we're talking like 12 people, maybe 6 would show up.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 would show up.
Super sad. So anyways, so the second part of, but that is how you did it. I mean, and then it wasn't micromanaging because it was a different style for a different event.
Right. Yep.
So the other thing that I would hope that owners would be able to do would be able to promote confidence in their employees. Because I think a lot of times and I've said this before so many times, that we see all the good things employees do, but we don't often enough verbalize it to them. And we don't verbalize it with the intention of promoting confidence, which is kind of a different intention. Like, I think you did a great job on this. I loved your thought process. You're really capable. Do you see what I mean? Like following it through to that kind of conversation.
Yep.
Because if you promote confidence in them, they're going to step out on that limb further and further every single time. And what they're going to do is they're going to try, they're going to see, they're going to innovate. And you're giving them permission to do that by verbally and otherwise promoting confidence in them. And then the last thing would be, which kind of dovetails right on the promoting confidence, is they've got to be allowed to make mistakes and not have that be the end of the world. You know, I mean, I think sometimes in some offices I've seen where, oh my gosh, the smallest thing just ends up being a big thing. And it really, really isn't.
So let me be the owner manager here, because this is kind of where my brain goes. Saying you have to give them a long leash or lots of bandwidth to figure this out so that they can go from A to B to C to Z, this whole process. That's great. That's fine. But if I definitely have mental hangups on that, how can I just let go?
Oh, you mean trust?
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things, and this is, we talked about this with the sales tips, right? One of the things that is just, and I think this is life, this is part of the human experience. We have to find ways to trust each other. That has to be, now if somebody has proven themselves untrustworthy, that is not going to happen. But in this scenario, if you're not micromanaging them and they're doing a good job, if you're promoting confidence in them and they step out and most of the stuff they try is a win, like they're building trust with you. And I think that's the kind of thing where you can't let one mistake or one fail erode all the trust. And sometimes what we tend to do is we look at that, if it's a bucket of trust, you know, somebody worked really hard to fill that bucket up, but then when the fail happens, we just dump the bucket upside down. And that's truly not the right thing to do. Failures are going to happen, especially if you allow people to stretch. And here's the truth. Some of the greatest ideas you'll ever get are sprung out of failure. They grow out of really making a big mistake and everybody brainstorming and figuring it out. So nobody should be deathly afraid of that. There isn't much that can't be fixed. I mean, it's great if your company is designed so that safety nets can be underneath people all the time, but most people don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that. Most companies don't. So at some point you have to trust that you have hired the right person, that you've trained the right person, and then that they have taken that gauntlet from you and proven to be trustworthy. And I mean, really, if you're a micromanager, non-trusting kind of person. And I talk with owners about that all the time. Like I will say to people, you have PTSD, about this particular subject.
So here's my question. Manager owner Kevin says, I hear everything you're saying, and I'm going to go against every innate emotion in my being, and I'm going to let Geraldinho over here run wild with this account. I've trained them properly. I've given them all the attaboys that I can give them. This will be their first solo mission, okay?
Yep.
Fully acknowledging that they are going to handle it in the framework that I've laid out, but still to their own...
with their own little spin.
Exactly.
Yep.
say it's a month-long thing.
Okay.
I just check in and I'm saying, hey, how are we doing on Project Z? And they say, everything's going smoothly, and they're giving me all the necessary verbiage that I need.
Yep.
So it's kind of quelling some internal conflict that I'm having.
Like you're able to breathe.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that sounds right. Okay, they look upbeat. Everything's great. At the end of the month, they come up to me and I say, hey, you had the meeting with the client for Project Z. How did it go? And they said, awful.
Yeah.
Just down in flames. I don't know that we can resurrect the relationship. I think they're going to move on. Do I sit there and do I say, I knew it. Everybody surrounding me is a moron. I'm the only person that can do this job. Or do I sit down with them and I say, let's comb through all of this to see where the pivot point turned, that it went wrong. And then how do I allow myself to give him or somebody new that same level of freedom, knowing that one already crashed and burned?
So the first,
I just threw a lot of stuff at you.
Yeah. The first thing you said about that narrative.
Geraldinho? Oh, okay.
No, the narrative, like, I can never trust them again.
Yeah.
I've got to take it back. So if you have any PTSD like that, that is going to be the first thing you think. But you kind of have to set it aside. And I think you have to bring your best self to the table and say, hey, Geraldine, let's sit down.
Geraldine Yo, it's a man.
Oh, sorry, Geraldine Yo. You have to sit down and say, okay, like, you told me this, the good news, like along the way, you told me that, like, are you still confident that those things were all correct? I mean, like, those things happened. And Geraldine Yo goes, for sure. And so tell me your frame of mind when you went into the meeting. And let's say Geraldine Yo goes, I was like incredibly confident. I mean, I felt like I had laid the groundwork for everything to go right. Okay. Then I would say, Geraldine Yo, at what moment did you know it was going to go wrong? Play it out for me. And I think it's just about being kind, giving them a safe space to be able to talk it out, because I think we'll find the problem. I really do think we will. I think we will find the place where it went wrong. Now, let's remember with clients, we don't have magic wand power over those people. I mean, Geraldine Yo could have done everything right.
Sure.
And the client still didn't want it. And the client still, was sarcastic and not very nice and, whatever. But try to break it down. And then I think the really important part that people forget is, Geraldine Yo, what do you need from me next time? Because I think they need to right then know there's going to be a next time for them. It isn't the end of the world. I mean, even though this is disturbing to everybody that we, did, that this wasn't, an opportunity, that it was a fail. But I think it's like, what do you need from me next time? And maybe the thing is just like, would you mind being present in the meeting? If you see a ball drop, then you can grab it, so that you can kind of mentor me a little bit, live in a meeting if we have to. But I also think I'm the eternal optimist. And I also think I would say, Geraldine Yo, is there anything you or I could do to salvage this thing that has just gone wrong? And I think sometimes we just accept failure way too prematurely. And what can I do? Like, if we invite this potential client back to the table, will they re-engage? Can we possibly save it? And that's how I think it should go.
All right, let me ask this question, then we can move off the topic. We comb through everything that conceptually could have gone wrong, and we try to pinpoint it.
Yep.
If we're sitting there and we've debriefed and we look at this thing and we say, this is the best thing we could have ever done. Like, this is as good as it possibly could have been. And we still didn't get the result we wanted. As the owner, how do I walk away from that feeling good?
Well, I mean, here's the truth. Every client has free will. Every customer has free will. I mean, I can literally, walk in and have every intention of buying a dress, but unless there's one that hits me in the head, I can walk out without buying anything. I just think that what we try to cover every base with clients. We try to know exactly what they want, exactly what they need. And we try desperately in so many ways to fulfill that need so that they will, engage in the product or service or whatever it is that, that we're selling. But at the end of the day, they get to just decide no for no good reason if they want to. I mean, you literally could have done everything right. And I think that's where if I feel like I've uncovered every cup and tried every solution and it still isn't going to happen, then for me, the only way that I find peace is, and I know people don't like this answer necessarily, but this is just what I do for me. I just say that this wasn't our time. This was not meant to be. I don't write them off forever. I just write them off for the moment, meaning hopefully we can re-engage again. And then my goal is that however we leave it, they understand that the door is open and they are welcome to proceed through it again.
Now give me the words of praise you would give to Geraldino after my hypothetical situation of everything going right, but still not getting it.
So I would say, Geraldino, listen, I checked in with you all along the way and I didn't really have much to offer. I feel like you were doing a great job. After we've scoured through this whole thing, I also don't have much to offer because I think you did just about everything right. I think maybe the client wasn't ready. I think maybe the client has his or her own insecurities about proceeding forward. I think this might not even be a forever no. So we may need to revisit it one more time so that they feel like the door is wide open. But I think you did a great job. And the only reason I feel bad for you is because you put all the right work, you did all the right steps, and it didn't pay off the way we had hoped it should. But you shouldn't let that daunt you. I mean, proceed forward. I'm really proud of you. And I think you should be proud of the work that you did.
Love it. And Geraldino, you get a raise.
No raise yet.
When you make the sale, Geraldino, you get a raise.
You get a bonus when you make the sale.
Love it. Perfect. Deb, always insightful, always helpful, always applicable. You're making better owners.
There we go. That's what we hope.
Assuming they listen to your advice.
Yeah.
Dear Debbie, 3 questions, 2 business, a little more fun. Are you ready?
So ready.
Dear Debbie, my husband and I are having a major disagreement concerning our 2 sons' inheritance. When we die, our sons will inherit everything, 50-50, with exception of our family business, which is worth a considerable amount of money. My husband has already turned the business over to our eldest son. We'll call him Donald. My husband feels that Donald has earned this because he stayed with us. Donald and his family have enjoyed a very prosperous life because of the family business. Steve, our younger son, started his own business in a different field. He has always struggled and his family has never known the same level of comfort as Donald's. This troubles me. I'm trying to convince my husband that he should give Steve at least part of his inheritance while we are alive. He needs the money to enlarge his business. We would never miss the money. I think it's fair, but my husband refuses to let Steve have it until we're both dead. How can our personal lives help my son's professional life?
So I have an answer for this.
Wow,
question.
You already have it queued up. Deb, hit us with it.
And again, this is only my opinion.
Yeah, this is only opinions. It's satirical. Nobody should ever listen to what we say, minus the business advice because she's a business consultant. But everything else is just meant to be a fun time.
And if you agree with me, go with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this family scenario, I really feel like I could almost pull up on a computer, like you get this, you get that, you get this. Because
they have a spreadsheet?
Yeah, like they've done the work. That's what it feels like, right? And so I think with their personal finances, if we could like literally liquidate everything tomorrow, she said it was going to be 50-50, right? And they have more than enough means to live. I'm going to assume that Stephen is not an idiot or has a drinking problem, or
he's just trying to be a Twitch streamer and his channel hasn't taken off yet.
Exactly. I'm going to assume that Stephen wants to make his own way, right?
I mean, you can assume that. He goes by Steve, though, Deb, so let's not really make him that formal. He's a very cool guy.
But Donald is formal.
Donald is formal. Yeah. Nobody calls him Don.
Okay. So assuming that none of those kind of things are at play, right? I'm going to be okay with Stephen.
It's Steve.
Steve. Here's how I would be. So that 50-50 that has nothing to do with the business.
Yes.
I would make both boys aware of it. I think people can know about their finance. I mean, about what's going to happen in the event of my death, right?
A little dangerous game to play, seeing a lot of Dateline episodes, but yes.
And I also think that if that taking some of that money away from my husband or I is not a problem, meaning we don't need it.
Prior to your death.
Prior to my death. Then I think what it looks like, and I say to Donald and Stephen, I think you could really, Steve.
Thank you.
I think you could really benefit from this, let's call it $250,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming off the ledger. So if we die 2 years from now, you're getting $250,000 less because you already got this.
Right.
And I think you just make it clear Donald isn't included in the decision making, but we tell him about it, meaning, Donald, you don't have a vote or a voice in this. This is your father's and my decision, right?
Yep.
And if it's all liquid tomorrow, Steve, what you need to understand is that you're going to get $250,000 less.
But here's the holdup. I think it's the dad who's saying, Ish, don't think so. I want this to be the case up until I die, which then makes me think the dad wants to die so he doesn't have to give Steve the money to watch Steve put it into a sunken cost of a business already.
Well, here's the thing. I think that the dad, especially if the dad is so firm on this, I think there are some underlying issues for the dad. I'm just going to say that, for the dad, right?
Yep.
And, here's one of the things you and I talk about all the time about how it doesn't take a lot for us to be happy. We don't need super lavish, extravagant homes. We don't need the fanciest cars in the world, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's a place where we're just okay, right?
Yep.
And Steve may be like that. So, but the father, who sounds very successful, is perhaps judging Steve. We don't know. But I mean, I know a family that did exactly this. They had 3 kids. They knew exactly what was going to go, to each one. They had one daughter, and this daughter was a problem. I mean, like she was a problem. She had an addiction issue. She had a whole bunch of other things. And the father literally, I mean, before she ended up passing away first, but she had really run through her inheritance in her life. I mean, meaning if she had outlived her parents,
right.
there
was
would have
nothing.
been nothing.
Right.
And the other 2 would have gotten theirs. So, I mean, I think if you're straightforward with it, it's not the end of the world. And I also liked it. It didn't sound like Steve had asked for money.
No.
It was just the mother's observation, that she wanted to help. And I didn't like the mother's observation of that everybody should have the same lifestyle, because we don't even know that was a priority for Steve.
Because let's not lose focus on the fact that Donald joined the family business. Donald is successful because he was already joining a successful venture. Our guy Steve is out there trying to blaze his own path, and he's coming up, a little short sometimes, but let's not punish the guy who's taken it upon himself to try to fend for he and his family. Like I'm big team Steve.
Right. And so, I mean, it could even be, we don't know this, but if the father was the one that started his business, I mean, Steve really is emulating the father as well.
Totally.
So, no, I'm all about helping Steve out for sure.
Love you, Steve. Dear Debbie, I started my business around the same time as several of my friends. We are all doing different things, but I have to admit that I am struggling. I know it takes time to get things off the ground, but I am still in the red and really don't have the funds to keep going much longer. I talked to one friend this week and learned that her business has grown so much that she's trying to figure out how to manage her expansion. Meanwhile, I feel like such a failure. Do you think I should ask my friends what they are doing that is making their businesses work? How can I get good advice on what to do next? Steve. No, I'm just kidding.
Gosh, did you call Deb? I mean, they are calling Deb right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, dear Debbie. They're all different industries. And so that is really hard. I mean, because if people don't know each other's industries, I mean, to some degree, then,
Yeah, why isn't my sausage... Can't say the word. Why isn't my sausage stand working out? Because Betty's boutique is on fire.
Exactly.
Like,
whole different deal.
I don't know. Those aren't even the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're both retail, I guess, right? That's the common denominator. But I do think also, too, when you get to the point that we're saying like almost closed, don't have the funds.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty late in the game to be having the conversation.
For sure.
So that is also a problem. I think that sometimes the one thing that I see with businesses, and I mean, this happens in the world today, and sometimes it's very, very, very successful, but I think a lot of times it's one-offs. And we love to look at the one-offs. We love those stories, right?
Right. The exceptions to the rule that we forget are the exceptions to the rule that this isn't going to work.
I mean, we love it. Like, what was it? 2 Romanian guys that came to America, started WhatsApp in third world countries,
right,
and sold it to Facebook for billions of dollars. Like, we love those stories, right? But I think those are one-offs for the most part.
Clearly.
And I think we don't all have the same work ethic, which friends are not going to discuss amongst each other. I think we all don't have the same investment opportunity on the get-go and along the way, right? So I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I think the problem here is the beginning of the question, the comparing themselves to the friends.
Well, that's
the problem.
I mean, one of the things I would say is this feels very similar to like something we've addressed on this podcast, which is you're seeking advice for something where there is no black and white answer. It's business ownership. I mean, you can be in the exact same industry as somebody. And even if you try to follow somebody's business model, you're not them and you don't have their business. Whatever worked for them, maybe worked for them because they went viral. Maybe it worked for them because of somebody they hired. Maybe they just got in on the ground floor of Facebook ads before you did. It's not equal. It will never be equal. And if you're going to compare 2 different industries, then it's certainly never going to be fair for you. And you're going to bang your head against the wall because you're truly going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I understand asking questions like these, but these are the questions that you ask way before you start your business, while you start your business. And then when you see that your business isn't gaining traction or losing traction, this is when you triple up on those questions. And then the last thing you do is spend good money after bad money.
Right.
If the market is telling you your business isn't successful, I mean, that's super humbling that you look at yourself and say, maybe I'm the reason why it's not being successful, but I love this idea. Trust the masses. The masses are letting you know this isn't the thing that they want, and don't feel as though it's a reflection of you. It's just that that's not what they wanted, and they did want your friends.
Right. Whatever they brought to the table. I also think that, it can be a good business idea and still not work.
Totally.
Timing is everything, meaning the marketplace timing.
Yep.
Right. I mean, we hear stories all the time. I just heard one yesterday about, this guy that started, of all things, a taco restaurant in LA during the pandemic, but he had such an interesting little niche that he brought to it that differentiated him from other taco places. He grew like crazy. Yep. I mean, they're hand making 2,000 a day special tortillas. I mean, they're opening their second location. I mean, it sounds weird that could be like a thing.
Yep.
In LA. Right?
I mean, I think about the thing during the pandemic that was going to start was this streaming service called Quibi, which was going to make very short television shows, like between
I remember that.
6 minutes and 12 minutes. It turns out it came out during a time where everybody wanted really long form content and as much of it as humanly possible. They sunk like $1 billion into that thing. And that does not mean that was a bad venture. It just means that they went smack dab against the worst timing ever for shortened content, because all people wanted was, is there something that has 24 episodes and 10 seasons that I can just mindlessly watch while I'm trapped in my home? And the answer to that is not 5 episode seasons that are 7 minutes long.
Yeah, because that only takes care of a half an hour of my time.
Right. And so we will see a version of Quibi that comes our way in 5 years where we say, this is genius. But that doesn't diminish what the other people were trying to do 5 years ago. It just means that the timing was totally off. And that would probably be the same argument that I would have with this person, which is you might have a genius idea, but the world is just not ready for it, or you just mismanaged it to the point that you really can't salvage it.
The other part, too, is I think people do ask questions along the way, and I think people discard valuable information.
True.
That's the other part of it, because now we're down to asking our friends, right? Do you know what I mean? Because to me, it would be like I would want to talk to I'd say experts in my arena first.
Oh, yeah.
That would be where I would go. And if I'm down to talking to my friends who are actually in other businesses, I'm not saying that they don't have really good nuggets of gold to offer. I'm just saying these are the people that you kind of feel competitive with. And, it's muddy water.
I would agree with you.
Muddy water.
You are putting the feeling of being uncomfortable on your friends as if they're somehow now going to be tied to the success or failure of your business.
Well, and the weight and measure of just being an entrepreneur.
True.
Because some people, like I think for you, because your dad and I both owned businesses, right? I mean, it wasn't such a big stretch for you to think I want my own business.
True.
I mean, you grew up in a household where that was the dinner table talk.
Very true.
For somebody whose parents worked at GE for 30 years, do you know what I mean? Or, something like that where they really had the stability of a large corporation behind them. The people that say, and there's no condemnation on this, but the people that say, but the benefits package is really good, like that's meaningful to them.
Yep.
And you and I know what it's like to swing without benefits, right? And that doesn't seem to scare us all the time. That also plays into it. So if this was their first effort at being entrepreneurial, and maybe their friends had grown up in a family like you'd grown up, right? So just the fear factor was different. I mean, there's so much that goes into that, but, don't go into more debt because those stories are few and far between of.
Yeah, rescuing a successful company from the clutches of bankruptcy usually doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Dear Debbie, I am pregnant. Sounds like we got a woman here. Because of this, my father-in-law has started to dote on me, especially with food. That's nice. He says cooking is his passion, but he's a horrible cook.
Oh, no.
Every time he shows up, he brings something he spent hours making, and I feel obligated to eat it. My husband stepped in briefly when his father kept making me spinach quiche. After one slice, I got sick. My father-in-law kept bringing more quiche over until my husband told him it was one of my trigger foods for nausea. The thing is, all of his cooking is a trigger food for my nausea. How can I get my father-in-law to back off? It was bad enough eating his food before I was pregnant, but I can no longer stand it. It's a waste of his time and a waste of food.
So this is her husband's problem, not hers.
Got it. Oh, okay.
And her husband needs to go to her dad, and he needs to tell his dad whatever it is his dad can live with that will make her relationship with his father stay intact. So I think it would be something like this. Dad, Susie loves it that you are caring for her and your future grandchild by, all this food. This is amazing. What I'm going to ask you is to stop doing this. And I'm going to tell you why. From day to day, the things that she can eat, the things that sound good to her, the things that she tolerates are night and day different. There's no keeping up with it. We could order takeout from a different place 2 or 3 times a day. I'm going to ask you to not do this because some of the food, I don't want to waste food. And if it's a day that she doesn't feel like eating it, it's not going to happen. And it's not because she doesn't like it. It's because she's pregnant and she's got hormones surging through her body. There's other things you could do to help us, and then list those things.
I'm going to weaponize the father-in-law, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to look at him and I'm going to say, Dad, Susie is her name?
Yeah.
Susie doesn't want any homemade food. None. 0. You know what she wants, Dad?
Processed food.
All the fast food you can imagine. She wants Wendy's. She wants Jack in the Box. She wants Burger King. Even on Sunday, she wants Chick-fil-A when she knows it's closed, but she wants it. She wants everything made by a machine, handled by a human, passed to you in a car. That's what she wants. Here are the benefits of this. Your father is actually going to save money because he's buying fast food, which is just inherently a third of the price as Whole Foods. Second off, you get an Uber delivery every single day of food that you know you will in fact like, but you don't have to feel guilty about throwing it away. And if the food arrives from your father-in-law Grubhub delivery guy and you eat it, then that's a win for everybody.
Oh, otherwise you can toss it.
Right. The father saves money, feels like he's helping out.
Yeah.
You get to not feel bad about junking the food because it's fast food anyways. And you know that if he made food, it's 3 times more expensive and you feel 3 times more guilty throwing the food away. But if he delivers it and you eat it, everybody feels good until you inevitably feel bad because you just ate McDonald's. But everybody wins in this situation.
What if Dad, let me play the devil's advocate.
Okay.
What if Dad wants to deliver the food himself?
No, that's what I'm saying.
But what if she doesn't want fast food?
What, he's going to stare at me while I eat tacos?
He's going to sit down and say, hey, let's have a beer while you eat.
I don't think that's the case. Now we're getting into weird voyeur stuff like, let me just crack a beer and watch you eat that lasagna.
We could make a list of the fast food places we like.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying is you give him a list of say, hey, whenever you feel compelled to cook, stop. Don't do that. Get in your Subaru, drive to
Chick-fil-A if it's not a Sunday.
Exactly. Grab these items, bring them, drop them off. You feel good. I may or may not feel good depending on whether I eat it or not, but everybody leaves happy because I don't have to throw away good food. You don't have to make the good food, and I can decide whether or not to clog my arteries of my future baby.
I'm not going to lie. I can poke some holes in that strategy.
Oh, that's impossible.
It's not a real world, nor is it a perfect world. So I can go with it.
I think that's the best case scenario.
I mean, it is so heartfelt what he's doing.
Of course.
And we just don't want to hurt his feelings.
Yeah.
That's the whole deal.
Spinach quiche, dude. You need some texture in there.
Spinach quiche. And oh man, if it's wet, ugh.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah.
Deb, just give us a quick recap for those who have forgotten. What's for dinner tonight?
So, tonight we're having barbecued ribs.
Ooh.
Homemade potato salad.
Yum.
My baked beans, which are different than most baked beans.
Got it. What makes your baked beans so special? Give us the recipe to Deb's good old fashioned homemade Northern Nevada baked beans.
Well, I'll just tell you the ingredients that make it a little bit different.
Lay it on us.
I put this in at the end because I don't want them to be soggy. I do the thick sliced peppered bacon.
Yep.
I add
do you
that
fry
to the
it
beans.
first?
I fry it first.
Got it.
And kind of crispy, and I just put it in at the very end. Okay. I do put a little bit of jalapeno, so we get a little heat.
Spicy.
I do a little combination of maple syrup and brown sugar.
Delicious.
And then
here you go, folks.
I know it sounds so weird.
Wait for it.
I put pineapple in.
Pineapple slices.
Yeah, like little tidbits.
It's fantastic.
It's weird, but it is so good.
It's no different than people who eat pineapple on pizza. There's a savory sweet thing that happens, which is delicious. And it's the same thing in the baked beans. You're used to the baked beans being so unbelievably savory that when you bite into this pineapple, it cuts through it and it almost makes you feel like you're not eating fatty beans.
And it's a different texture.
Yep.
So I know it sounds weird, but try it. It's great. And so we'll do some corn on the cob.
Yum.
And then that was it. So you know what I think I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a fruit shortcake, like a fruit. I'm going to do a scone.
A fruit cake for June?
Scones with like fresh berries on top.
Oh yeah, like a little strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Deb, what are you thankful for this week?
I feel like I have lots of things.
Oh, well then this is going to be easy for you to rattle them off.
Okay, so
that we're all alive and we made it through the power outage.
I'm really thankful that power outage only lasted 2 hours.
Exactly.
Can I say I'm grateful that the internet outage was mostly while we slept? Yeah.
Let me tell you this. When I woke up on Friday morning and the internet was still out, I called AT&T. I committed.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I committed fraud and I said I was my father. And the woman could not have been nicer. The woman, whose name was Alan, could not have been more nice. And I said, I'm calling because I know there's a power outage. I'm calling to find out how long it's going to be because it's been over 13 hours now. Woman, so nice, ran through everything that she didn't need to run through, restart the modem. I said, it's not going to restart. The power's out. There's no internet. That's okay, sir. Please do it. Kept referring to me as Gary, freaked me out every single time she did it. And then we eventually got to knowing that there was a power outage. And I said, so what are we going to do about this? And she said, I mean, and so nice, there's nothing we can do about this. And I said, so we're just going to not have internet? I'm acting like
a bomb
all the fresh water in the world has been like radioactive. We're not going to have internet? And she said, well, they're working on it. Like she is just like trying to tamp down this anger that she sees boiling up in me. And I say, I need you to know I'm not mad at you. I have no issue with you. You've been fantastic. But I don't have internet. All of us work from home. Yeah. It's Friday, as if it being Friday has anything to do with anything. And she says, just like clawing at anything to make me feel better, would you like me to send you a text once the internet's back?
Oh.
And I was like, I think when the internet's back, I'm going to know because the internet's back. And I said, what's the time frame? And this is where I almost just shot, through the roof. She goes, well, it's a 24-hour window.
Oh, no.
And I thought, okay, well, nothing I can do here. This is just going to be the worst day ever. Fortunately, the internet was back like an hour after that.
So what time did you call her?
7:30 in the morning.
Because I woke up at like 3.
In the morning?
Yep.
Wow.
And I usually use Alexa or a little Echo Dot for a clock and an alarm.
Oh, and the Alexas were ringing red because there was no internet connection.
Because there's no internet. Exactly. So I just plugged my phone in and left it by my bed, right?
Yep.
I opened my phone up in the middle of the night and there's still the LTE sign.
Oh, bad.
And I was like, ugh. And then I want to say like at 8:15, it was back on.
Got it.
Yeah. So, well, Kevin, that was really nice of you to make the try.
Thank you.
The other thing that I want to...
Wait, did you say what you're thankful for yet?
Yeah, well, I said the internet is a joke and all that.
True.
But so I am getting better at telling people about the podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm not as good as I should be. And I did announce that I told you last week to that group of women in Michigan.
Yeah.
And there was a thread on Facebook where somebody was driving home and like a number of hours.
Sure.
And they listened to our podcast and said, they made a post that if you haven't, this was like the best thing. It was really cute. And then everybody jumped on and said, I'll subscribe. And it was so funny because part of me wanted to go, these are all business women.
Yep.
This was a business thing.
And what episode were they greeted with?
Oh my God, you peed your pants. Yeah, that's the episode they were greeted with. And so please don't start with that episode. Go back to
start with that episode because it's all uphill after that.
And so but it was super cute because there were all these people that jumped on, and one said, I listened to it on an airplane to Ohio or whatever, and it was just so sweet. It warmed my heart. I'm so incredibly grateful because really every time I picture somebody at their house listening, I mean, it's like you and I said, we picture them here with us at our kitchen table, if you will. And it just made me feel great. It was awesome.
Fantastic. To all of those people who are listening, all those women, you thought you were going to get one thing when you subscribed to this podcast, and then you didn't know about Kevin, and it took you on a wild ride.
Yeah, and he's unreliable in the subject matter. You
1,000%
to know that for the future.
But it keeps it spicy. I have a couple thankfuls. My first thankful is we started this podcast, and then we stopped this podcast because prior to it, we've talked about how you are obviously suffering from esophageal cancer.
Or throat cancer.
Yeah, you just can't speak at all without clearing your throat. We were a minute 45 into the podcast, and I did the exact same rant that I did to start the podcast this time as I did last time. You refused to talk. You were just like nodding your head because you were trying to like save the good voice. The second she opened her mouth the first time, it was, I got you, girl. And I was like, my God. This is going to be a 7-hour podcast. You went to the bathroom.
I was laughing so hard. You actually
I almost peed my pants.
You yelled at me.
I mean, it was jokingly yelling at you, clearly, because it was just it was the best / worst case scenario, which was like we had spent 10 minutes talking, just like loosen your voice up a little bit. Yeah. And then I spoke for like a minute, 15 seconds. And then the first words that came out of your mouth, it was like you had just lived in a casino for 20 years. So the fact that we made it through this podcast with 2 edits, one of which is mine, like the most thankful I've ever been thankful.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Folks, you need to know that he scared me that I was actually going to be abused. He started yelling, no, I'm not going to do this. Which made me laugh. So then I leave. Dad's in the kitchen making a sandwich. He goes, what is going on in there? And I said, nothing good. He's threatening me. And so that's how the podcast started.
It was so freaking funny. It was one of those moments where it's like, there's no way you can be, because I know you can't control it. I know you're not like making excess phlegm in your throat, but it was just like, great. Maybe we can get 20 minutes before our first edit, minute, 15 seconds.
It would be nice.
It was hilarious.
But we did it.
Totally.
So here is, I will say, the key to throat cancer and esophageal cancer. Is Kevin tormented me so much that I went to the doctor. Yeah. And I kind of did my whole thing. She looked down my throat. She said, I'm fine. And then she said, hey, sometimes do you get like acid reflux, which, I think, doesn't the whole world get it sometimes? Yeah. And so she's having me take, it'd be like, I got the prescription, but it's like the Prilosec kind of thing. Yep. And I just take it once a day. And I'd gotten to take it. So I did run up and take it. And I think what happened is enough time went by because we had a few minutes there. Yep. And it's something about it. It just clears it out and then I'm fine. Oh, there you go. So I've got to remember to take it. Yeah.
Medication based. Love that for us. So that was my first thankful. My second thankful is I was able to spend time with fantastic people on Friday. We saw our friend Haley, who's down from Montana, who we've referenced on this podcast many times. We got to spend coffee with her. Then I got to spend time with 2 very close friends who live in town, but I haven't seen for forever, friends Amanda and Aaron. And these are those moments we've talked about. If you go listen to other podcasts, we just miss being surrounded by the people that we love and adore. And now that the world's opened up and now that we're vaccinated, now that we feel more comfortable, we're getting to spend that quality time with people that we yearned for a year ago at this time. And so I just want to sit in total admiration and appreciation for that, because I would have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that last year. And it only cost me a cup of coffee and a couple glasses of wine. So I was super duper happy to be able to spend that time with them and just catch up on all the things that we haven't been able to catch up on.
Hey, when I went to Michigan, I took the craziest route to get to Michigan just so I could drive 2.5 hours with my friend Carly from West Virginia so I could see her darling face and talk. And it was in the middle of the night. And I'm sure we were on a road where murders happen. I'm quite confident.
Murder happens on every road. Yeah. If you try hard enough.
But I was still so happy to be in a car with her, lay eyes on her, see her face in 3D, hear her voice in person. I mean, I totally get it. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, Deb, we have gone long on this episode, but I'm happy we did. We tackled a lot of very important topics, including how we had to restart this podcast, but ultimately turned out to be one of the better ones.
I mean, I do think if they would have seen the beginning, it would have been great entertainment.
Well, we definitely recorded it, so we can see if we do something with that later.
Okay.
But that's going to do it for this Monday's episode of the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to what? Like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast. And you can also follow us on all of our social channels at Deb and Kev Pod. And you can watch this exact episode today at our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev Pod. Mom, I love you to death.
I love you, baby.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
We'll see you all on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.